It finally happened. The Philadelphia Eagles have handed out a historic contract extension to their QB1, Jalen Hurts. Gino and I have our thoughts live right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. As always, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And man, what a day to do a show, Gino. The contract extension that we've all been waiting for is finally here. The Eagles have agreed, 10 minutes ago, to a 5-year contract extension with QB1 Jalen Hurts worth $255 million, 179 fully guaranteed. It's a yearly annual salary of $51 million, which makes him the highest paid player in NFL history. And I know that's a ton of money. I know it's harder to build a NFL contender with this kind of contract, but Gino, me and you've been saying it for months. If you don't have, we've been saying it for years, although it's a lot of money to swallow, if you don't have a quarterback worth paying this much money, if you're not comfortable paying your quarterback the most money in NFL history, as tough as that is, then to me, you don't have a quarterback. And so I think this should be celebrated. This is a great feeling to know we've got our guy, so much so that they didn't even have a trade clause. They have a no trade clause in this contract, which shows their commitment.
Which might be the biggest aspect of the entire contract after the whole Carson Wentz saga, right? And I don't know how this happened, Lou, but I usually text you every morning saying, when are we going to record? And
you did it simultaneously.
As I said that, the Jalen Hurts contract, that Philadelphia Eagles send the notification that QB1 is here to stay. And Lou, this whole saga of Jalen Hurts is one that, if you're writing a storybook, which you might write the Foles Wentz story, that might be the final chapter, the evolution to what Jalen Hurts became. And you're saying you pick this guy in the second round, and that's a blessing in disguise now, Lou, because you don't have the 5th-year option to where you would have had another year of control, where you would have been in that market with Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua, Lamar wants his contract. You were forced to go and pay him now. You had to extend him. And $51 million, I thought that probably is maybe $3 to $4 million less than what we had expected. I thought 55 would have been that number. But good for him, man. Good for the guaranteed number. He's going to be a rich man. And shout out to his agent, Nicole Lynn, one of the top female agents in the entire industry.
Yeah.
Shout out to her for having that collaboration with Jalen Hurts to make him the highest paid player. And I don't think it's going to be for long, Lou. I think this might be
Burrow and Herbert are about to get paid at any moment. So I'm glad that Howie also
this done. Yeah.
Howie beat him to the punch. And that was the same thing that we liked about how he went about the Carson Wentz contract. Yes, of course it didn't work out, but it's better to be the first ones to get in and to save at least a little bit. And again, it's splitting hairs, right? When you see how much Joe Burrow is going to get and Justin Herbert, and what you see what Mahomes will get again and Allen, you're going to be spending a ton of money. It's going to take up a massive percentage of your cap, but it is good that at least you can save a little bit of money. Let's get some more numbers here on this contract from Ian Rappaport. Jalen Hurts gets $110 million fully guaranteed at signing, third most ever, and $126.5 million fully guaranteed before year 2. So this is a big time contract. I was going to start the show today before this deal, Gino, by talking about the Buda Baker trade rumors and some other positions to start spending money. But after this, they're pretty strapped. It's not like they can't do anything now moving forward, but this is a historic contract.
Well, it had to get done before the draft because you had to know how much
Yeah.
money you were going to have to pay your
To pay the
draft
rookie
picks.
class,
Yeah.
sure.
When
Yeah.
they come in, they do have a set number of dollars that they have to be paid. So Howie Roseman had to get that done. And Lou, going back to your first point, if you're not comfortable paying your quarterback the most amount of money, are you
Yeah.
comfortable with him? Which makes me go to
Like the Daniel Jones
Daniel
deal.
Jones.
If I'm
Bingo.
only willing to pay a guy like $40 million, but I don't want to pay much more, if there has to be like this hardcore negotiation where there's a ceiling set, then again, to me, you're not the quarterback. To me, you're either paying your quarterback this market you're either paying him to reset the market or you're drafting a new quarterback.
Which on this show, we are pay elite football players 100 times out of 100.
Especially this position, because
And
this is the way to be a consistent contender is this player.
If you want to say what was the final thing on his resume that Howie Roseman went down and said, okay, that's why we're going to pay him. I mean, his last audition tape in the Super Bowl.
The
I mean,
Super
how
Bowl
do you
told
how do you
everything you need to know?
Bingo, man.
It was the best performance in a Super Bowl loss in NFL history against Patrick Mahomes. He answered the question, can he duel with the best of the best by throwing the football? Can you win a championship because you can throw the football with Jalen Hurts? It was a question a calendar year ago that none of us knew the answer to, and a lot of us had doubts. Even the Philadelphia Eagles had doubts. Ian Rappaport last week talked about how at the Combine last year, Gino, they were convinced the Eagles could potentially trade for Russell Wilson if he was going to sign off with his no-trade clause. So to see what happened after that Tampa Bay playoff game, even before that, as you mentioned, the circumstances of drafting him in the second round, people being upset about it and thinking this is a long-term backup. You had Carson Wentz on his contract, to then the doubts of last year, to then this breakout season. This is an incredibly cool and unique story in football. I mean, this is a underdog story, even going back to his college days, to see how far Jalen Hurts has come and to see what he's overcome is, again, book and movie worthy. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a testament to Jalen, man. I mean, how many guys, we've said this time and time again, mentally can come back from being benched at a national championship game and then go and have to take the reins and win an SEC title game and then move colleges and have the entire franchise and all of Oklahoma on your shoulders. And then you come to Philly, arguably the toughest market for a quarterback.
And a lot of the city is not happy with you being there.
We weren't. Locked On Eagles podcast was not
and
happy
then
at that time.
For 2 off seasons, there's rumors about people replacing you and no belief in you. I mean, I don't think, and now I celebrate him, and I'm so glad. I've never been more wrong about a player in my entire life, and I'll never be more wrong again. But I don't think I hated on a player more on this podcast than Jalen Hurts. I mean, he dealt with a lot, and this is all full circle. And again, though, I have no doubts now that this is a huge contract. Again, the highest paid player in NFL history. But I have no doubts now. I'm all in on this deal. Even the no trade clause, I'm like, I get it. This is not going to go the same way as it went with Carson Wentz. I totally believe that.
And when you look at Jalen Hurts' last season, how many of those games were games that you won because of Jalen Hurts? Probably 75 to 80% of those games.
You should have won a championship because of Jalen Hurts.
Without a doubt. If your defense gets one stop, Jalen Hurts has got his first ring against Patrick Mahomes. And what he did in that game culminated to this contract. And what this means, Lou, is that it's going to be harder to build a team. But when rising tides lift all boats, that's the definition of a player you win because of. That's Jalen Hurts' job now. His job is to have all of this pressure, which he has already overcome, Lou. Like the pressure element to when Carson Wentz got the bag versus now, I'm in 2 completely different headspaces. Because after Carson Wentz gets extended, you have to say, can he come back from this injury? Can he do what you thought he could have done if he didn't get injured? And with Jalen Hurts, you're saying, now you just got to go and continue to do what you were doing. And he's never succumbed to the pressure. He's never succumbed to the media element of Philadelphia. And heck, I mean, the media loves this guy, and never once have we questioned his fortitude mentally, his leadership, and all of those things when you're signing at the dotted line should make you feel good about that decision that you made, that everybody had bought it. And even before he was the guy, they were buying into Jalen Hurts. So if they're all in the locker room, Howie Roseman's all in, Jeffrey Lurie signed off, he's going to have a big amount of money in escrow with that signing bonus. We got to believe in him, Lou. And it's going to be tougher to build a team, but as long as you got that QB, the Josh Allens of the world, the Patrick Mahomes, you have to ride with them. You got to put all the chips into the middle of the table and hope that
Exactly
hits. And right now it's looking like Jalen number one is going to hit again next year.
We'll continue to react to the news that Jalen Hurts has signed a 5-year contract extension with the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming up next, right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. And guys, today's show is presented by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought you'd make a good general manager, you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty when you play Ultimate Football GM. You get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build a historic dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries, as we saw today with the Birds, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, all the ups and downs of a season, all in this challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On Eagles listeners, you get a 100% free boost to your franchise when using the promo code Locked On. That's Locked On in all caps in the game store. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM, start your dynasty today. All right, Eagles fans, we are continuing on this Monday edition of Locked On Eagles. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Eagles your first listen Monday through Friday. And what an awesome Monday show, Gino. We got to put Mock Draft Monday on hold despite the draft being 1 week away. Don't worry, we're going to do a mock draft this week. We've got you covered, but we have to talk about Jalen Hurts' historic contract. And, Gino, we talked about a lot of the main points, the main takeaways in segment one. And I keep going back to just how far we've come with this whole Hurts saga from 2020, even all the drama from last year. But there's a lot of luck involved, man, too, because I know the Eagles are all in now on Jalen. Again, they put a no trade clause in this contract. But last year, there were a lot of rumors about what they were looking to do at quarterback. If Russell Wilson wanted them to trade for him, would they have done it? Deshaun Watson, there were rumors about them maybe trying to trade up for Zach Wilson a few years ago. And that's the cool thing. And like when they took Jalen, it was to be a long-term backup for Carson. So this isn't to discredit Philly for having Hurts as their quarterback. But man, this league, it does take a lot of luck, right? I mean, even you look at Seattle with Russell Wilson, they did the same thing. They had just paid Matt Flynn a giant deal. Sometimes you got to get lucky. And not that this is all about luck, because he recognized like most teams thought Hurts was a 4th, 5th round prospect, right? And he took him in the 2nd round. So he definitely valued him more than most. But there was some luck to this for sure. You need that in the NFL.
The butterfly effect. We're going to do one of those shows this summer on how we got to this point, right? And I think you have to go all the way back to the acquisition of Michael Vick after the inevitable departure of Donovan McNabb, because that starts this whole sequence of events to trying to find that next guy, right, Lou? It's being on a desert island and trying to find that watering hole. And you thought you had it in Carson Wentz, but that was just a mirage, right? Like, look at this great wonderland, which is Carson Wentz. And could Nick Foles be the guy? And all of a sudden we're sitting there at draft day, and I will never forget it. Seeing the comments, you guys are going to hate this one. You guys are going to hate this one. And you hear Philadelphia Eagles select quarterback out of Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts. And that threw an ultimate wrench into what would be the next butterfly effect to get us here.
Right.
And what Jalen Hurts did in his time leading up to that is arguably the formula you want for every single player in your organization. If there is somebody above you, do your job, be where your feet are. And if you are good enough, teams will find you, man. And that's what happened. Jalen Hurts bought into the program, knew he wasn't the guy, did exactly his job. And then when his bell was rung, Lou, he came in and He performed better than expectations. He evolved year over year. He got better as a leader. He got better within the offense. From his first outing to his last outing, it's two completely different players. And one guy who will never sit on his hands, it's quarterback Jalen Hurts. And now you're saying, what if they didn't, Lou? What if they did trade for Russell Wilson and Jalen Hurts got drafted? Let's say he got drafted by the Washington
would have been
Commanders.
The wrong call, man.
It would have been 100%.
It would not have gone out the way that, it would not have gone the way that it has right now. This is the ideal scenario that played out. Now you even like, Gino, if they didn't trade for Russell Wilson, but what if Jalen Hurts was the 2021 version this past year? And now this year you have that top 10 pick and you're one of those teams trying to get up for Anthony Richardson or, CJ Stroud, Will Levis. The fact that you have this contract now, you have your quarterback, and you get to now invest 2 first-round picks in surrounding him with inexpensive talent. Now, Gino, more than ever, these draft picks are extremely important. The fact that you can use them to support the quarterback instead of replace him is massive, right? Because, look at your cap situation now. It's not that you can't sign anybody for these next 5 seasons, but if you can get another core piece, like a long-term cornerback on a 5-year cheap deal as a rookie, or your new right tackle of the future, or right guard to protect Jalen, or another tight end and receiver that is on a rookie contract, if Howie needs to keep up what he's doing in the draft. These past 2 years, he's crushed these classes. Now more than ever, it's that much more important.
Yeah. When you look at the draft, it now becomes not another good thing. It becomes a necessity. Like the free agent pool is going to take a step back in team building and probably trades, unless you find those guys that still have 2-3 years on their rookie deal and you can kind of save some money there, the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson type of moves. But it becomes a necessity to grow through the draft. And are you going to do that in 2023 with just 6 selections? No, but look at next year, Lou. Next year is probably
coming.
all the comp picks. That's what the formula.
Twos.
That's what the formula. Yeah, 2 twos. You're going to have multiple thirds after you get all these comp selections.
Oh yeah.
But it now becomes the New England Patriot dynasty way of team building. And not saying that they're going to be a dynasty where they win 6 Super Bowls, but when Tom Brady was the quarterback, what was Bill Belichick doing? He was getting good players in the draft who would then go on to sign contracts elsewhere to get those comp picks, so that you are probably bargain bin shopping at the Dollar Tree for some of these free agents, and you're rebuilding your franchise pieces through the draft. Well, the good part is they're already ahead of the ball with extending Jordan Mailata when they did, and Josh Sweat when they did, and Payne Lane Johnson and AJ Brown. And you'll probably sign the Devontae Smiths of the world, but the luxury of being able to sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, TJ Edwards, we already saw the effects of that. Your defense is gone because your quarterback contract was coming. So now that free agent pool, which became arguably the biggest impact when it came to team building, now takes the seat back, and they're sitting in the back. Well, all those draft picks come up front and they're leading the charge now. So Howie Roseman's job even becomes more difficult, because not only did you sign that quarterback, which you are tied to, you now have the job of having to find a way to get out of this, not get out of this situation, but keep this boat afloat and
to extend it. Yeah. But the good thing is, as you mentioned, you have a lot of young, when you look at after Carson Wentz came out of that 2018 season with his contract, and you look at the roster that they had in 2019 and 2020 versus what Jalen Hurts has to work with heading into this second deal, night and day, I think, when it comes to like star power in the trenches, players actually in their prime, not just on these one-year deals. Because again, Howie's going to have to hit on the draft classes. He's going to have to hit on those 1-year prove-it deals, like last year with James Bradbury, and those value trades for a CGJ, or in the past like a Jay Ajayi. So he's going to have to continue to do that to complement the roster. But the good thing is a lot of these guys already aren't going anywhere. So Jalen Hurts comes in on this deal already set up, I think, way better than Carson Wentz ever was. So that's the other good part of this. It's again, there's a lot of obstacles you have to overcome after you hand one singular player this much money. But you need this player to go anywhere. It's not a good thing when you have a ton of money to invest in other positions because you don't have your quarterback. So this is an obstacle that every team wants to overcome. And so today I just more want to celebrate that the Eagles have their guy, and it's a guy that I didn't think would be the guy. I didn't know after Wentz was traded how long it was going to take to get that player. And I was so jealous watching Bills Chiefs in the playoffs last year and watching the run that the Bengals went on with Joe Burrow. And to know that we have that guy at 24 years old is an awesome feeling. So we'll continue to recap this contract extension. Coming up next, guys, this is a Monday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. All right, Eagles fans, thanks for making us a part of your day. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. It's the Locked On Eagles podcast. We are recapping the historic contract extension for quarterback Jalen Hurts, $255 million, 51 a year, which is the most in NFL history. Gino, you know what else is interesting? I cannot remember, and I don't know if there is really another team. Maybe there's a few examples of this, but can you think of another team that handed out 2 historic contract extensions to a quarterback in a 5-year span? I mean, when it comes to the unique story of this situation, it's nuts. I don't even know. Is it like Matt Flynn to Russell Wilson? I don't know what it is, but this is kind of crazy.
You know, what's insane is that I remember that day vividly. I remember the studio we were sitting in. I remember the discussion we were having.
We were in Entercom in Buffalo.
Yeah, man. I'll never forget that. And I'm sitting here and saying now, I feel the same exact way where...
Can you imagine telling yourself back then what would have happened? I mean,
no,
nuts.
The butterfly effect. And I feel the same way when it comes to paying that position, regardless of the individual. At the end of the day, has there ever been a position in any sport that has had as large of an impact on the outcome of a season than a quarterback has? Outside of some outlier seasons, the Nick Foles one, for example, it's usually the top guy. The Trent Dilfer year, yeah, we know that happened. Rob Johnson, we know that happened. But look at the bowl last year, Lou. Pat Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. Even the years before that, yeah, you could bring in the Rams with Jared Goff, but look at that team that he had around him. Yeah. Not only do you have to have the quarterback, but you have to make the right moves outside of that. And look at the Chiefs, man. That's the formula that you want to follow now. Like, look at what they're doing. You get rid of Tyreek Hill and you bring in Juju and you bring in Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and those pay rewards for you. And you're not paying the top dollar elsewhere because you paid the most important position in all of sport. Even, look at Ronaldo right now. His team's second in the Saudi Arabian League, and he's not even making that big of an impact. But a quarterback in the National Football League can truly change the outcome. And it's not a one-man
Changes
sport,
everything.
But it does change everything, Lou.
It's the most important position in all of sports. And you're right. Like football, there's 53 players on a roster. There is so much turnover. It's harder than a LeBron James to carry the 2018 Cleveland Cavaliers all the way to the finals. It's tough for one player to carry a team in the NFL compared to other sports. But if there is one position that can do it, it is quarterback. And it's in a league where other players at other positions, they age fast. They cash in contracts. You're not a hard salary cap league, but at the same time, you're not the NBA where you can just keep paying a luxury tax and just keep bumping it up and pay as much as you want. So this is the one position that can stabilize your team for 10 years. I mean, we mentioned with Tom Brady, look at how different his Super Bowl teams looked in New England, and look how different the teams looked behind, Peyton Manning and Big Ben. And as you mentioned with the Chiefs, like look at the turnover that happened this year with Patrick Mahomes. So this is a position that you have to have it. And it's why I'll never understand when teams settle. Like I will never get why the Giants have gone about it the way they have, or the Minnesota Vikings, or the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill. And it's why last year I was upset. I'm like, if this is all that Jalen Hurts is, we've got to look for more. And the fact that he was the guy to be more is incredible. And the way he did it too, Gino, is, I mean, insane. It's the processing improvements in accuracy, pocket presence, ball placement. The step he took from 2021 against Tampa to last year, week 2 against Minnesota, incredible.
There's a couple points that I want to touch in that we've discussed here over the last couple years. One, it's been, 8 years to the day almost since Sam Bradford was traded to Philadelphia. Think about that. And think about the reaction you had at that point. You're saying this guy's
Miserable.
you're never going to win with this guy, right? And
Miserable. Yeah.
even when they had Carson, it's like, still got to see. And then you see 2017, you're like, yeah, we can win with them. And then things change in the blink of an eye. And now you're saying Jalen Hurts can be that guy. We've seen it enough, and you are trusting him. Why though, Lou? Because the NFL is changing. He's not that just stand in the pocket. We're going to sit there, sling the ball. He completely changes an offense. They want to change the rules of the National Football League to take out a play that he has been
because he was so unstoppable.
On, yeah. Right. And then the other point I want to talk about is, Lou, is not being in the middle. We've always talked about the purgatory. And when they acquired that pick, that first round pick from the Saints, we said there were two options. You were either one, going to use that selection to go and find your future quarterback, right, or two, Jalen Hurts is going to make you feel comfortable enough to where you are going to use those assets to build around him.
I was nervous there was going to be an in-between, Gino. I'm like,
but we never talked about it though, because we never wanted it to happen.
We were terrified. I was so scared he was going to be a little bit better than 2021. Maybe they even win a playoff game. And then you're like, what do we do in that scenario? I never thought he'd reach. He literally did everything he needed to. Like, it was the best case scenario, maybe even better than the best case scenario. And that's, oh my gosh. I mean, like, it's such a good, you mentioned the Bradford trade. I remember the emotions then. I remember the emotions when they traded up for Wentz and they signed him to a deal. And now this contract extension, it feels so good to have a quarterback. And it's almost like losing hurts more than winning feels good. And like, not having a quarterback feels worse than having one. And you have an entertaining one that's mobile, that is one of the best processors now in the game, that's 24 years old, that is accurate, and his work ethic is his leadership and work ethic is generational. I mean, he is one of the most unique players I've ever seen. And now Philadelphia knows it. They've locked him up now to a 5-year deal, $255 million, 51 a year, 179 guaranteed. And, all week, we've got the draft coming up next Thursday, but trust us, we've got more Jalen Hurts content for you right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Make sure you subscribe on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers Monday through Friday. Today's Monday, so we'll be back tomorrow for another show on Tuesday. Also, make sure you hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnBirds, at DiBiase, LOE, and at GC24_football. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Jalen, fly.